Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back with another video. Hope you enjoy it wherever you are. And this video is inspired, at least in part, if not fully, by this book here called Black, Brilliant and Dyslexic, written by Marcia Brissett Bailey, who won it, who, as far as I'm aware, is doing a project, or was doing a project, I'm not sure if she's still doing it, I think she's probably still involved in it, which tries to, I'm sure it's an ongoing thing, which tries to look at how to have more role models of colour, amongst the dyslexic or neurodiverse or special needs, as I put it at this moment, because it's September and my own special needs with alliterations and stuff like that, and my obsession with and compulsion to do alliterations. But yeah, anyway, she has got together rather brilliantly, I think, which is in the title of the book, of course, many prominent black people with dyslexia. So I think in terms of role models, probably women and POC, people of colour, as I would call them. I suppose in that I would include Asians and mixed race people like myself, being Eurasian myself, a type of mixed race, are underrepresented perhaps in terms of role models. So I thought it was quite a good book. I'd probably give it 80% so far. I'm on to page 174 already, which is unlike me. I don't normally read books, but I saw this a few times and I decided to take an exception to it. That's probably not the right way of putting it. To have an exception to that rule. I'm not reading many books. I prefer to write, really, to be honest. If I could, I'd write everywhere. I might have writing everywhere, but I'm going to try and talk about that and my mental health problems tomorrow. But anyway, on to the topic at hand. I was reading it and some of it I didn't really find too interesting. I thought that it was a bit sort of whingy or moany, if you like. It was kind of talking about racism quite a lot, and I thought that it would be more about positive stories. But I suppose from their experience where they grew up and their time when they grew up in the area, they probably suffered from a lot more racism and prejudice and all that. Like me personally, be it living in a diverse area and also being quite a recluse, perhaps that's, I mean, I'm sure people where I'm from, I nearly revealed the location there, but I don't want to say where. Maybe I could say this, the actual county, but I don't want to give too much away in terms of, obviously I don't want to share my address, but the area I'm in the Midlands of the UK, basically in Leicestershire, but I'm not going to say where. And I hope obviously people don't find out where I live just in case, but the area I live in is not as, there's probably not as much racism or discrimination, or maybe there is, but because I don't go out much, I'm fairly reclusive so far. I've been relatively lucky. I've not really experienced that much racism, but I did think it was a bit sort of going through some of the negative stuff, but I suppose they could be both a balance between negative, like experiences at school, experiences with racism in this case, or whatever. But overall, I still give the book about 80%, partly because I thought there was some interesting stories in there, and I think I did start getting a few ideas, and it's interesting to see what they've achieved despite what they've had to overcome, having a double burden of having a special need or learning disability, or more than one, and also being from an ethnic minority as well. And especially in those days when a lot of those people grew up, there was probably a lot more prejudice, and where they live might be different as well, or certainly in certain institutions as well. I've barely worked in my life, so I've not really had that much experience of it, but I have a little bit. Anyway, overall, I still think it's a good book, and I think if you're interested in Black history, Black empowerment, and especially special needs, and specifically dyslexia, or even related conditions, I say special needs generally, this is, I think, a good book to check out. One of many good books on dyslexia, like the Dyslexia Adventures, is another one. Anyway, the idea I got from this book, and I think there might be one or two, including networks and connections. I suppose there are probably ideas I've already had, but they have given me new connections I could perhaps try and email in October, which is Dyslexia Awareness Month. But the ideas I got from this book, or the idea at least one or two, was one where someone talked about having a strict upbringing and how their parents wanted them to do well academically, so they got them a tutor to try and improve their education. And my mum did that for me when I was younger, which I kind of appreciate in a way, because I think certainly the effort. I was thinking, if you go to a restaurant or somewhere and someone takes you out, even if the food's not good, their intention might have still been really good. And I probably did get some things from the tuition, maybe, I'm not sure, but I think it's geared towards more neurotypical learning rather than neurodiverse or special needs learning. Anywho, this idea that I got was they were talking about how their parents spend that much money and then complained to them about how they spend that much money, and then their dad got them to, probably meaning well, got them to sit down, and that back then people didn't understand special needs in any community probably, but especially people from Africa, and they had more superstitious views. Like I think it's the one whose parents, one of them was from Nigeria and one of them was from Ghana, but I might be mixing up a few different stories. I forgot whose name it was as well, to be honest. But I know it was one of the ladies in the book, and it was I think one of the parents was from Nigeria and one's from Cameroon perhaps, and they had more superstitious views and like that kind of thing. So they didn't believe in dyslexia. So I suppose parents mean well, but what I was thinking is, what if families and supporters of those with special needs, including people with special needs themselves, I include in that probably dyslexia, dyspraxia, or whatever could be included as special needs, including ADHD and things like that. Not sure about other conditions like Down syndrome, which might be more severe, but they might be included as well. I mean, I've heard of some people with Down syndrome who, with support, have managed to set up their own business even, which is, I suppose, very impressive for anyone to be able to do. Anyway, sorry, I'm just trying to check the look at this. Anyway, yeah, so what I was thinking is, what if we had our own trust fund between us all around the world? I know I often mention I'm not that materialistic, but I think this would be quite interesting. So instead of spending money on tuition and things like that, what if parents understood more about special needs, and that instead, I suppose especially for dyslexia, I'm thinking possibly to an extent, ADHD, maybe even dyspraxia to an extent, but I think dyslexia would be the main one, because it's normally the area where we struggle the most is, generally speaking, academic, whereas with dyspraxia is more coordinational and things like that, so more practical things, which many dyslexic people might be good at. But I suppose ADHD people also struggle with sitting down following instructions in many cases. But what if instead parents looked at what we, and families generally looked at what we were good at, looked at what our strengths are, for one thing. And I was thinking, what could put a lot of people off starting their own business? Perhaps that's a question I could have asked in the live chat, but what is something that puts you off, say, running your own business, starting your own startup or whatever, learning to invest and things like that? And I think for me, it was probably, although I had all these ideas and I really wanted to do it, it was actually taking that step. It was probably trying to work through fear, other people's opinions of me, not knowing what to do, not knowing what would happen, not knowing if I would fail or make a fool of myself, worrying about failure, people mocking me, or even just like daydreaming too much and not taking action on the ideas, and things like that, and maybe giving up too easily as well, and things like that, not having the knowledge or information to put such ideas into practice, and that kind of thing, generally speaking. And then I suppose having the finances, the capital. Like, I'd go to my dad and say, I want to set up my own business, and my dad was like, and I think most parents are like this, they'd be like, you need to get a job, you need to at least start with a job, or he was like, you don't have capital to do it, or things like that. So I'm trying to think of objections, like people said to me, like when my friends said, you don't know anything about business, or things like that. So even though I had all these ideas, dyslexic creativity and ideas and mad ideas and stuff like that, which I think were probably, and probably still are, affected by both my mental health and my, as I say, as this method in the madness and my dyslexia. So I'm not sure if it's something we're born with, or something that we get for having to try and solve problems and navigate through life, if you like. So that's a big question I think a lot of people ask. Is it something we're born with as dyslexics, and all the dyslexics who have achieved as academics, or is it because they struggled in school and had to work through daily struggles? So I thought, what if we set up our own trust fund, which could have savings for a rainy day, and also that could be money that could be used for us to, I suppose, for some of us to get books and read, or audio books at least to listen to. I think YouTube is a great thing, which is pretty much a free tool, but that money could go towards us setting up our own businesses, learning to invest. Instead, we could save and invest. Most importantly, I think investing is even more important than saving, in my opinion. I used to think people with special needs should learn how to save money and avoid losing money, but now I think it's more important to grow money, if you want it, especially if you want to get rich, rather than save it, because they're printing so much. I suppose I mainly heard from Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know why I was about to put in speech marks, but Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad and Poor Dad, where he talked about that kind of thing, about investing rather than saving, and how making and saving money means you get taxed more, whereas if we learn to invest and run a big business and grow our business, we could get tax savings. And I think if we work together as a team, as a group, those who with special needs and those who support special needs people around the world, again, because of September, alliterations, I'm using the term special needs rather than neurodiverse at the moment. In November, I'll use neurodiverse a lot more, if not completely, but if not 100% of the time. Certainly I'll try to, and in October I'll use the term dyslexia more, focus more on dyslexia. But yeah, what if we came together, including the overlapping conditions, so as many of us around the world as possible, and if it became a success, I hope with momentum, more will join. I think the main thing is getting it started, and then it can hopefully grow and grow. And I think as many special needs families, even individuals and families and groups and supporters and whatnot, coming together to invest in a trusted trust fund where again we could save and invest money, and hopefully people, I know nowadays there's a lot of scams. I'm very suspicious and wary. I try and be careful of who I give money to, what I invest in. I don't even do online shopping or banking, although I'd love to do that because it would save me a lot of time from having to stand in queues or things like that, although I don't do much banking or shopping, to be fair. But the little times I do have to do search, if I could avoid queues, it would be great. If I felt more secure. So I understand there's a lot of scams out there, but hopefully these will be trusted things where people know if I put my money into this, it will grow, it will help me in the longer run. And I think instead of tuition, which for most people with special needs, I think is probably a waste, especially those with dyslexia and A.D.H.D, possibly even dyspraxia, maybe even autism. It's probably a waste because it's probably not the way most of us learn. It might be good for some people, but I think even so, to have this trust fund I think would be better for all people with special needs. And again, we could use it to learn to take risk, maybe even to invest, which is always a risk, I'm sure. We can learn to invest, we can learn to build businesses and things like that. So I'd love to read comments and hear from families of special needs people and to talk about. I know some people might not like the term, so delete that term and use another one if you prefer. But whichever term you like to use, I'd love to hear from or read your comments. Hopefully in the comment section. I always ask, but no one ever seems to comment. But please don't hold back your feedback. If you think about something, why not type it up and you can see how it goes. And I'm open for the exchange of open-ended exchange of ideas, or however you put it. But I think as a tuition for most of us would be a waste of time, and even for those, it might be for those few people with special needs who might learn through tuition. I still think it'd be better to have money. I suppose I'm not a big fan of the academic system, but yeah, for the problems we have and things like that. So I know the intention and well-meaning parents is good, and I think the intention is always good, but are the outcomes good? So I appreciate parents trying to support their children, special needs children or whatever, or even children generally, and people supporting their families. I think that's really important if you can do so. And part of that might be pushing and encouraging them, and even sort of getting them to come out of their comfort zone, and even things that seem harsh, like people might say to me, I don't support my mum or whatever. Or they might say you should take her food or bring her drinks or things like that. And a lot of time I try and say I think she should walk more and things like that if she can, and she should go for walks every day and go to walk to get her own food and drink and things like that. And I think that would be a lot better for her. It would keep her moving. But yeah, I think, as I say, well-meaning parents and families try and get their children to do tuition, or think that if you beat them or you shout at them or do all these sorts of things, if you get tuition, all these sorts of things, they will work, but they haven't really worked historically, and I don't think they will work in the future. So I think you have to, try something different. This video has gone on a bit longer than planned, but I hope it made sense, and I'd love to know what you think. So I think special needs people and possibly our families as well, it would be good if we support each other on social media. That's one way where we can monetize it through advertising and things like subscribing to each other's channels and supporting each other. Excuse the plug. Supporting each other's works generally, even books and content we create generally, whether that's on social media or wherever else, each other's websites, each other's projects and work generally. I put projects in speech marks because it's not really my word. I'm borrowing the word from other people, taking a word from other people, and similar with ventures or adventures. But yeah, if we learn to invest together, have a trust fund where we invest together, even creating our own independent schools. Those are three things I think we could do. Create our own independent schools, which I talked before about. Create, well, possibly save a bit of money as well, but I think most importantly is invest it and learn things, possibly through books, audiobooks, YouTube, motivational videos on YouTube, for instance, like Evan Carmichael and channels like that, the Dyslexic Advantage and others. And I think also, I forgot to say actually, when I was talking about I know I jumped from point to point, sorry, but when I was thinking about how the problems of setting up a business, like fear of failure, fear of making a fool of yourself, fear of whether you run out of capital, whether you lose money, but and things like that, if you see it as trial and error and understand that failure is a part of learning and part of the learning curve. But even if we work together, we can help each other to avoid mistakes, avoid failure, and even if we can't do that, we can help each other to understand how to overcome it and how to almost embrace it, even as a learning curve, perhaps. And if people have been through it, they can advise us. So those who have the contacts, the experience, funding, and things like that. I think this network would create a lot of solutions, hopefully all necessary solutions, and more for us to go forward. And I think it could be a really powerful network, because if 20 or even 30% of people have some form of special need, maybe even more, but let's say 25%, that's a quarter around the world. If we were a country, we would be probably the most populous country. I suppose there'd be about 2 billion of us around the world altogether, and then our families as well, and sports and whatnot. So I say that because I think the strength in numbers, we could achieve so much if we're investing together, saving together, having more funding. Those arguments like fear of failure, fear of making a mistake, if we've got each other's back, we can cover each other. Those who have been through it can tell us what it's like, how to come out the other side, right at the end of the tunnel, and things like that. And we can invest. We have more investment money and funds to invest, more access to money and resources, funding, and things like that. So I think that would be pretty cool. So we, as I say, we'd have more of that available to invest, to take risks, and things like that. I think we'd be a lot stronger together. Hashtag stronger together. Excuse the corniness of some of my sayings, but I do believe that strongly, that we would be hashtag stronger together, have each other's backs. I think it'd be better to learn things we're actually good at, and or learn in ways where we learn best, like tuition, academia, and things like that, whichever order you want to put in, are not probably the best. Academia or tuition are not the best ways in which we learn. So if we're not doing well at school, tuition is probably not going to help a lot of us. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, and please post any questions you have or any comments you have, and out. Peace out.